What would you do if the man you trusted with your heart became the reason you had to disappear? 6 months pregnant. Lena Vale walked into Philadelphia's most exclusive restaurant expecting a quiet dinner with her husband Dominic, the Mafia boss half the city feared. Snow pressed against the windows. Candlelight flickered across crystal glasses. Then she saw him in a shadowed booth with a famous model, his lips brushing the woman's hand as if his wedding vows meant nothing. Lena did not scream. She did not beg. Before midnight, she left her ring on a sealed letter and vanished beyond the reach of his empire. But this is not only a story about betrayal. It is about power, motherhood, control, and whether a dangerous man can learn that love is not ownership. Stay until the end, because the letter Dominic finds will destroy everything he believes, like the video and comment where you are watching from. 3 years before Lena Vale left her wedding ring on a sealed letter, Dominic Vale walked into a public school library with blood drying beneath the cuff of his white shirt. Outside Philadelphia was drowning in late November rain. Water ran along the curbs in silver streams, carrying dead leaves past brick row houses and corner stores glowing against the gray afternoon. Inside St. Matthew Elementary, paper stars hung from the ceiling. Children whispered over picture books, and the air smelled of crayons, dust, and wet coats. Dominic did not belong there. He belonged in private dining rooms where men lowered their voices when he entered. He belonged in warehouses along the Delaware River behind locked doors where debts were measured in money, loyalty, and sometimes pain. His family controlled freight companies, construction crews, waterfront unions, security firms, and enough city officials to make problems disappear before they reached a courtroom. That morning, a contractor named Anthony Russo had decided he could steal from the Vale family and still make it home for dinner. By noon, Anthony had discovered his mistake. By 3, Dominic was sitting in the back of a black sedan while his driver passed him a clean handkerchief. "You have the school event," the driver reminded him. Dominic looked at the blood near his wrist. "Do I?" "Your mother said the cameras would be there." That was reason enough. Vivian Vale believed charity was most useful when federal investigators became curious. A new library looked innocent in photographs. Children smiling beneath a foundation banner made powerful men appear generous. Generosity softened judges, journalists, and voters. Dominic arrived 20 minutes late. The principal hurried toward him the moment he entered the library. "Mr. Vale, thank you so much for coming. We were beginning to think the weather had delayed you." Before Dominic could answer, a woman carrying a box of books looked over from the reading rug. "You are late." The principal stopped breathing. Dominic turned toward the voice. The woman wore black pants, a blue sweater, and shoes that had survived too many school hallways. A pencil held her dark hair in a loose knot, though several strands had escaped around her face. There was green marker ink along the side of her hand. She was not smiling. Dominic studied her. "Excuse me. You were supposed to read with the children at 2:30. I had business. So do they." She crossed the room and placed the box of books in his arms. Dominic looked down at it. The principal whispered, "Ms. Hart." The woman ignored her. "The photographers are near the banner," she said. "If you came for pictures, stand over there. If you came to help, the third graders are reading about sea turtles." The room had gone strangely quiet. Teachers pretended to organize papers. Children stared openly. 2 men from Dominic's security detail waited beside the door, uncertain whether they were about to remove a threat or watch their employer get handed a picture book. Dominic looked at the reading rug. "You want me to sit on the floor? I want you to decide why you came." Nobody spoke to Dominic Vale like that. Not twice. A part of him expected anger to rise. Instead, something shifted behind his ribs. Not warmth, exactly. Curiosity. He removed his jacket and handed it to one of his men. Then he sat on the carpet. 15 children stared at him. The woman placed a book in his hands and knelt beside him. "Try not to read it like a ransom demand." Dominic looked up at her. Her eyes were brown steady and entirely without fear. Do people usually speak to me this way? No. Why do you? She glanced toward the children. Because they are more important than your reputation. Dominic opened the book. His voice was too formal at first. Every sentence sounded like a statement prepared for court. A little boy in a red sweater interrupted him to ask whether sea turtles had teeth. Dominic examined the page as though the answer might be hidden in a financial report. I do not know. The woman smiled for the first time. Then say that. Dominic looked at the child. I do not know. The boy accepted this without disappointment. A little girl moved closer and leaned against Dominic's arm to see the illustration. His body went still. Children did not understand the rules adults followed around him. They did not know his name had been whispered in police stations, court offices, and union halls. They did not know men had vanished after disappointing his family. To them, he was only a badly dressed reader holding a book about turtles. When the session ended, the woman gathered the books. Dominic stood and buttoned his jacket. What is your name, Lena Hart? Do you always insult people who donate money to your school, only when they arrive late and expect gratitude before effort? The principal made a small sound of distress. Dominic almost smiled. Ms. Hart, perhaps you should be careful. Lena lifted the empty box. About what speaking honestly to strangers? You are not a stranger. Your name is on the wall. She nodded toward a brass plaque beside the library entrance. Dominic followed her gaze. The Vale Foundation had funded the new shelves computers and reading program. Lena added, That does not mean I know you. For reasons he could not explain, Dominic thought about that sentence all evening. He returned to the school the following week. There were no cameras. He told himself he had come to inspect the library renovation. Lena found him standing beside a shelf that had been installed unevenly. You came back. The shelf is crooked. So is the building. I can have it fixed. You can also help me move those boxes? Dominic removed his coat. The boxes contained donated books, many with torn covers and children's names written inside. Lena carried one against her hip. You could ask someone to help you, Dominic said. I could, but you did not. Most powerful men offer help because they want witnesses. He took the box from her. And what do you think I want? Lena pushed open the library door with her shoulder. Someone to tell you no and survive the experience. A laugh escaped him before he could stop it. Lena glanced over. The sound surprised both of them. After that, Dominic found more reasons to return. The school heating system failed during the first snow. A repair crew arrived before sunrise. Several children came to class without proper coats. Boxes appeared in the office 2 days later. The playground fence needed repairs. New steel fencing was installed over a weekend. Lena thanked the foundation each time. She never thanked Dominic personally. One afternoon, he found her standing on a ladder trying to hang paper snowflakes from the library ceiling. You know, I paid for the new heating system. Lena did not look down. I assumed the building repaired itself out of respect for your reputation. You could say thank you. I sent a letter to the foundation. I did not read it. That sounds like a personal failure. Dominic steadied the ladder when it shifted. Lena looked down at his hands. They were clean that day. Coffee, he said. What about it? You are going to have coffee with me. That sounded less like an invitation than a court order. Dominic corrected himself. Would you have coffee with me? Lena climbed down. To discuss the reading scholarship, if that makes you more comfortable. It does. It should not. She studied him for a long moment. Public place, of course. And I am paying for my own drink. Dominic almost objected. Her expression stopped him. Fine. The cafe she chose was crowded, noisy, and entirely unsuitable for private conversation. College students occupied half the tables. A baby cried near the window. The espresso machine hissed like angry machinery. Lena arrived before Dominic and had already paid for her tea. He sat across from her. "You do not trust me. I do not know you. Most people believe they know me. Most people confuse reputation with character." Dominic removed his gloves. "What does my reputation tell you that people fear you? And my character, I have not decided." He should have been offended. Instead, he wanted her to keep looking. He told her careful pieces of his life. His father, Richard Vale, had believed weakness invited attack. His mother believed affection created openings enemies could exploit. Dominic had learned to keep his expression still before he was old enough to understand why. He told Lena the family owned freight companies, construction businesses, restaurants, and private security firms. He did not explain the other businesses. She did not ask him to pretend they did not exist. "My life is complicated," he said. "That is what people say when the truth would make them uncomfortable. You think you understand people quickly?" "No. I think people reveal themselves slowly, then become angry when someone remembers." He looked at her tea. "You have not touched it. It is too hot. You could have waited until I arrived. I did not know whether you would." The words landed quietly. Dominic was accustomed to people waiting for him. Meetings paused. Tables remained open. Cars idled at curbs. Men missed family dinners because Dominic's schedule mattered more than theirs. Lena had bought her own tea because she did not trust him to arrive. He did not like what that said about him. When he asked about her family, she answered plainly. Her mother had died when Lena was 16. Her father, Samuel Hart, suffered a stroke years later and now lived in an assisted care facility outside Lancaster. Lena had worked through college while helping raise her younger sister, Molly. "Why teaching?" Dominic asked. Lena looked toward the crying baby near the window. "Because children deserve at least one room where fear does not make the rules." Dominic held her gaze. The answer stayed with him. Their second meeting was dinner. Lena called it a discussion about school funding. Dominic did not correct her. Their third meeting ended with a walk beside the Schuylkill River. The night was cold enough to turn every breath white. City lights trembled across the black water. Lena's scarf slipped loose in the wind. Dominic reached to fix it. She flinched. The movement was small, but Dominic noticed everything. He lowered his hand. "I would never hurt you." Lena's face changed. "Men say that as though hands are the only way to hurt someone." Dominic had no prepared response. The wind pulled at his coat. "My life is not clean, Lena. Neither is anyone's. You do not understand. Then explain it." "I cannot." She looked toward the river. "Then do not ask me to trust a locked door." Dominic should have walked away. He knew what happened to people drawn into the Vale family. Their choices narrowed. Their names became useful. Their private lives became weaknesses others could exploit. Lena belonged in classrooms filled with paper stars and children who asked impossible questions. She did not belong near men who carried guns beneath expensive coats. Dominic kissed her anyway. For a few seconds, the city became quiet. 2 months later, he brought Lena to the Vale estate. The house stood on the main line behind iron gates and bare winter trees. White stone walls rose above a circular drive. Tall windows reflected the evening sky without revealing anything inside. Lena looked through the car window. "This house does not look happy." Dominic glanced at her. "It is a house." "No, it is a warning with a roof." He almost smiled. Vivian Vale waited beneath a portrait of Dominic's grandfather. She wore silver silk and a string of pearls. Her hair was smooth, her posture perfect, her expression composed with the precision of a blade laid beside fine china. She kissed Dominic on both cheeks. Then she turned to Lena. "So, you are the schoolteacher, and you are Dominic's mother." Vivian's mouth curved slightly. "At least we have begun with accurate information." Dinner was served in a room large enough to make conversation feel official. Vivian asked where Lena's family spent summers. At home. Which private clubs had her father joined? None. Would Lena continue working after marriage? Lena set down her glass. There has been no discussion of marriage. Vivian looked at Dominic. There will be. Dominic said nothing. Vivian continued. Teaching is admirable when one requires an occupation. Dominic can provide more than enough. I do not teach because nobody offered to provide for me. What an unusual way to describe security. It is only security when you can leave it. The room became still. Dominic watched his mother. Vivian smiled as if Lena had passed one test and failed another. Later, Dominic took a call in his father's former study. Lena stood alone in the hall studying the family portraits. Vivian approached without making a sound. Do you know what happens to women who enter families like ours? Lena turned. They become family. No. Vivian looked toward the portraits. They become useful, or they become inconvenient. Lena's skin cooled. Which one were you? For the first time that evening, Vivian's smile disappeared. Before she could answer, Dominic returned. Everything all right? Lena looked at him. She could have told him exactly what his mother had said. Instead, she nodded. Everything is fine. It was the first time she made herself smaller to preserve the peace. Dominic proposed 8 months later. He chose the school library after everyone had gone home. Snow tapped softly against the windows. Children's drawings hung above the reading rug. Lena entered carrying a stack of papers and found him standing between the shelves. You are behaving suspiciously. I am often accused of that. He held a small box. Lena stopped. Dominic, I know you hate public scenes. I also dislike ambushes near alphabet charts. His smile was nervous. Dominic Vale feared across half the city was nervous. He opened the box. The ring was a simple gold band. Months earlier, Lena had seen a woman wearing an enormous diamond at a charity dinner and whispered that she would never wear a chandelier on her hand. Dominic had remembered. I am not a good man, he said. Lena's eyes softened. I know. I have done things you may never forgive if you learn their full shape. Then why are you asking me? Because when I am with you, I remember there may have been a version of me before my family decided what I had to become. Lena looked at him for a long time. That is not the same as changing. No. He lowered the ring slightly. But wanting to change is the first honest thing I have. Lena loved him. She also understood that love did not make danger disappear. Both truths stood inside her at once. She said yes. They married in a small chapel outside the city. Molly stood beside Lena and cried through the vows. Vivian sat in the front row wearing pale gray, her expression more appropriate for a corporate acquisition than a wedding. Dominic held Lena's hand carefully. For a while, marriage was beautiful. He sent coffee to her school when she forgot breakfast. He learned which old bookstores she loved. He watched her grade papers at the kitchen counter and pretended not to be fascinated by the tiny stars she drew beside correct answers. At night, he reached for her in his sleep as if some part of him understood where home was, even when he was unconscious. Lena began to believe love could make a dangerous man gentle. Then the calls returned. They came after midnight and during dinner. Dominic would glance at the screen, kiss her forehead, and leave the room. Men stopped talking when Lena entered his study. There was a second phone in his coat. One morning she noticed blood near his cuff. What happened? It is handled. Whose blood is that, Lena? That is not an answer. Dominic poured coffee. It is handled. Those words became the shape of their marriage. Where were you last night? It is handled. Why did your mother cancel my fundraiser? It is handled. Why are there armed men outside our home? It is handled. Why do I feel alone beside you? Lena never asked the final question aloud. By their second year, Vivian no longer treated her like a visitor. She treated her like a mistake that had remained too long. She corrected Lena's clothing posture, guest lists, and charity choices. At a hospital fundraiser, Vivian leaned close while cameras flashed across the ballroom. "You smile too openly." Lena kept watching the auction stage. "I thought that was the purpose of smiling." "The purpose is control." Lena turned toward her. "That explains yours." Vivian did not respond. Dominic heard about it before they reached home. In the car, he rubbed his forehead. "You do not have to provoke her. She insulted me. She tests everyone. I am not everyone. I am your wife." "I know." He sounded tired. Lena looked through the window at the passing lights. Knowing had never stopped him from allowing it. When Lena became pregnant, hope returned so quickly it embarrassed her. She placed the test on the bathroom counter. Dominic stared at it. Then he looked at her stomach, though there was nothing visible yet. His eyes filled before he could hide it. He knelt and pressed his forehead against her. "I will keep both of you safe." For 1 week, he came home early. He began assembling the crib and cursed at the instructions until Lena took the screwdriver from his hand. He attended the first ultrasound. When the sound of the heartbeat filled the room, Dominic went completely still. The doctor smiled. "That is your baby." Dominic looked at Lena as though he had been shown a miracle meant for someone better. Then a freight shipment disappeared near Baltimore. A union leader changed sides. Federal subpoenas arrived at the Vale offices. Dominic returned to the Empire. The crib remained unfinished. Lena attended the next appointment alone. She sat among couples in the waiting room with one hand resting over the curve of her stomach. When the nurse asked whether the father would be joining them, Lena smiled. He had business. She hated how familiar the sentence sounded. The Cole Alliance entered their lives in December. Vivian announced it during dinner at the estate. "Everett Cole controls shipping access from Boston to Norfolk," she said. "His daughter has influence in rooms contracts cannot enter." Sabrina Cole was a model whose face appeared above department stores and inside glossy magazines. She was also the public representative of her father's shipping companies. Dominic set down his glass. "We can handle Everett through commercial agreements." "Agreements do not create loyalty," Vivian replied. "Families do." Lena felt the baby move. Vivian continued. "Sabrina understands this world. She knows how to stand beside power without demanding that power apologize for existing." Lena looked at her. "That sounds less like a wife and more like furniture." Dominic almost smiled. Vivian did not. On the drive home, Lena watched snow slide across the windshield. "She wants Sabrina beside you. She wants the Cole ports." "That is not what I said. There is nothing between Sabrina and me. The truth is not only what happened, Dominic, it is also what you are willing to stop." His hands tightened around the steering wheel. "You think I do not understand what my mother is doing. I think understanding has never prevented you from obeying her." The rest of the ride passed in silence. During the following weeks, Sabrina's name began appearing everywhere. A shipping reception, a charity dinner, a magazine profile about 2 powerful East Coast families, a private meeting with investors. Dominic said each appearance was necessary. Lena watched photographs spread online. Sabrina beside Dominic at a podium. Sabrina touching his arm while cameras flashed. Dominic looking straight ahead, expression unreadable. One evening, Lena stood in the nursery folding small cotton clothes. "Have you met her alone?" Dominic leaned against the doorway. "No." Lena looked at him. "Do not lie to me." His expression closed. "I said no." She returned to folding. Another small surrender. More dangerous than the first, because she had begun measuring truth by how much of herself she had to silence in order to believe him. The invitation to the Meridian Room came on a Thursday morning. Dominic stood before the bedroom mirror, fastening his watch. dinner tonight." Lena looked up from the edge of the bed. "With whom?" "With me. Only us." His eyes met hers in the mirror. Only us. Hope opened inside her before caution could stop it. "What time?" 8. He crossed the room and placed his palm against her stomach. The baby kicked. His entire face softened. "Strong girl," he whispered. Lena covered his hand with hers. "She misses you." Dominic closed his eyes. "I know." His phone rang. Vivian's name appeared on the screen. The tenderness left the room before he answered. By late afternoon, Vivian had called Dominic to the estate for what she described as an urgent business matter. Everett Cole had concerns. Sabrina would be present. The alliance needed warmth, not signatures. Dominic argued for several minutes. Vivian listened until he finished. Then she said, "You can play husband after you protect the family." At 7:30, Dominic arrived at the Meridian Room. Sabrina sat alone in the corner booth beneath amber light. Her black dress caught the candle glow. Her smile looked practiced. "Your mother said you might resist." "My mother says many things. She also said your wife would arrive later." Dominic's eyes sharpened. "What before?" Sabrina could answer. Everett Cole entered with 2 port officials and a judge. Dominic disliked but needed. Documents covered the table. The meeting became a trap built from obligations. Across the city, Lena stood before the bedroom mirror in the green dress Dominic loved. She touched the curve of her stomach and told herself not to expect too much. At 8:15, the hostess led her into the restaurant. At the corner booth, Sabrina reached across the table and placed her hand beneath Dominic's. He looked down. She smiled. For the cameras, she whispered. A photographer stood near the bar. Dominic lifted her hand in a formal gesture meant to satisfy the room. His lips touched her knuckles. Then he saw Lena standing between the tables. Her face did not collapse. That would have been easier. She looked at Sabrina's hand, then at Dominic, and something inside her became terribly still. "Lena." She turned away. Dominic rose so quickly the table shook. Sabrina caught his sleeve. "The contracts." He looked back for one fatal second. By the time he reached the lobby, Lena was already inside the waiting car. The driver glanced toward the hotel doors. "Should I wait for Mr. Vale?" Lena watched Dominic step into the falling snow. "No," she said. "Take me home." The car door closed and Philadelphia began sliding past the window in broken pieces of light. Lena sat in the back seat with one hand over her stomach and the other pressed against her mouth. Snow rushed sideways through the streets. Storefronts blurred. Traffic lights changed from red to green for people whose lives had not just split open. The baby moved beneath her palm. Lena closed her eyes. "I know," she whispered. "I know, sweetheart." What hurt most was not Sabrina's hand in Dominic's. It was the memory of his palm against her stomach that morning, his voice calling their daughter strong, the promise of dinner, the foolish warmth that had opened inside Lena when he said it would be only them. She had believed him because she wanted to. That truth felt worse than the lie. By the time the car reached the penthouse, Lena's tears had stopped. The private elevator opened into silence. The apartment smelled faintly of Dominic's cologne and the cedar polish Vivian insisted the staff use on the floors. Lena stood in the entryway and looked around. The black and white photographs had been chosen by Vivian. The sculptures near the windows had been chosen by Vivian. The dining table, long enough for 12 people who never laughed together, had been chosen by Vivian. Lena wondered how much of her marriage had been furnished by another woman's hands. She walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. Dominic's suits lined one side in perfect rows. Her dresses hung across from them, arranged by color because Vivian once said disorder revealed a lack of discipline. Lena pulled a small suitcase from the top shelf. At first she packed carefully, a sweater, jeans, prenatal vitamins, medical records, her mother's silver cross, cash from the envelope she had hidden behind a loose bathroom tile. Then she entered the nursery. The unfinished crib stood beneath the window. One side rail still leaned against the wall. Lena picked up the ultrasound photograph from the dresser. Dominic had kept it beside his watch for weeks before the shipment disappeared and the subpoenas came. She held the image against her chest. The front door opened. Lena Dominic's voice traveled through the apartment. It had opened locked doors in Philadelphia. It had ended arguments before they began. It had made armed men straighten their backs. Lena returned to the bedroom and placed the photograph inside her suitcase. His footsteps came quickly down the hall. He appeared in the doorway with snow melting in his hair. His eyes went to the suitcase. "What are you doing?" "Leaving." The word seemed to strike him physically. "Because of what you saw." Lena looked at him. "Because of what I finally stopped pretending not to see. It was a business dinner. You kissed her hand." She forced the moment for the cameras. "And you let her." Dominic entered the room. "There is nothing between Sabrina and me. You still think this is about Sabrina." His jaw tightened. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means she is only the woman I could see." Lena closed the suitcase. "The other woman has been in our marriage from the beginning." Dominic stared at her. "My mother power." The room went quiet. Lena lifted the suitcase from the bed. Dominic moved into the doorway. "Lena, stop. Move. You are 6 months pregnant. You are upset. It is after midnight. You do not get to decide when my pain becomes reasonable. I am trying to keep you safe." "No. You are trying to keep me where you put me." She stepped toward the door. Dominic did not move. "You are my wife. That has always sounded more like ownership when you say it. Do not twist my words. I have spent 3 years untwisting them for you." She tried to pass. Dominic caught her wrist. Not hard. Enough. Lena looked down at his hand. For one terrible second, neither of them moved. "Let go of me." His fingers opened. She walked past him. In the study, she placed her plain gold ring on top of a sealed letter. Dominic stood several feet away. Lena looked at him one final time. "If you wanted a wife who could disappear inside your life, you should not have married a woman who still remembered how to leave." Then she walked into the elevator. Dominic did not follow until the doors had closed. Lena left the Vale car 2 blocks away and entered a train station through a side entrance. She bought a ticket to Lancaster with cash. Her phone rang until she turned it off. Every vibration felt like Dominic's hand around her wrist. The train was nearly empty. A college student slept against the window. An old man read beneath a weak overhead light. A mother across the aisle fed crackers to a tired child. Lena watched them. The first tear slid down her face as the train moved out of Philadelphia. By the time the city disappeared behind the darkness, she was crying silently into her sleeve. Molly Hart lived above a flower shop on a narrow street in Lancaster. She opened the door wearing sweatpants and an old college shirt with a hole near the collar. Her face changed when she saw Lena. What did he do? Lena stood in the hallway with snow in her hair and the suitcase beside her. Enough. Molly pulled her inside. She made tea. She found blankets. She took Lena's coat and hung it over a chair. She did not look too long at Lena's bare finger. Only after Lena sat on the couch with both hands over her stomach did Molly sit beside her. Did he hurt you? Lena shook her head. Not with his hands. Molly's mouth tightened. That still counts. For several minutes, Lena could not speak. The heater clicked in the wall. Pipes groaned somewhere beneath the floor. The flower shop below smelled faintly of roses, damp soil, and eucalyptus. Finally, Lena whispered, I thought I was being strong. Molly waited, but I was only being quiet. Her sister moved closer. Quiet may have kept you safe in that house. Lena looked at her. It does not have to become your permanent language. That was when Lena broke. She folded forward and sobbed until Molly wrapped both arms around her. I am so tired. I know. I feel so stupid. You are not. I kept waiting for him to choose me. Molly pressed her cheek against Lena's hair. Then choose yourself until you remember how. For 2 days, Dominic did not come. Lena told herself he was giving her space. Then she told herself he was too proud to chase her. Then she remembered Dominic Vale had never lost anything without first deciding whether it could be bought back, threatened back, or buried. On the third morning, white lilies arrived. Molly carried the arrangement upstairs with an expression of disgust. There is no card. Lena looked at the flowers. There does not need to be. Another arrangement arrived at noon. Red roses. Then a velvet box containing a diamond bracelet Lena had once refused to try on at a jeweler. Molly opened it. He thinks love is a delivery service. Lena closed the lid. No. He thinks guilt looks cleaner when it is expensive. That evening, an envelope came. Inside was a single handwritten line. Come home, we can fix this. Lena read it twice. Then she placed it in a kitchen drawer. The next night, a black sedan stopped outside the flower shop. Lena heard the engine before she saw the car. Molly looked through the curtain. He is here. Lena stood at the kitchen counter slicing an apple she no longer wanted. The knock came. 3 firm taps. Molly opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. Dominic stood in the hallway wearing a dark coat. He looked exhausted. There was stubble along his jaw and a bruise near one temple. His eyes searched past Molly. I need to speak to my wife. Molly did not move. Your wife needed to speak to you for years. Molly, you do not get to use my name like we are family. Dominic's expression hardened. She is carrying my child. Then perhaps you should have remembered she was carrying your heart too. Lena closed her eyes. Dominic looked toward the kitchen. Lena, I know you can hear me. She did not answer. I know my mother arranged the dinner. Lena's eyes opened. Dominic continued. I confronted her. She admitted Sabrina knew you were coming. Molly looked back at Lena. Dominic's voice grew rougher. I did not ask for Sabrina to touch me. I did not want you hurt. Lena stepped into the hallway. Molly moved aside but kept the chain secured. Dominic looked at Lena as if seeing her relieved and wounded him at the same time. You keep talking about what you wanted, Lena said. His face tightened. I am living with what you allowed. Let me explain. You had years. 5 minutes. No. Lena, you found out your mother was cruel after she hurt me badly enough to leave. That is not courage, Dominic. That is cleanup. He flinched. Lena hated that part of her still noticed. Dominic lowered his voice. I am not going to stop trying. You have never had trouble trying to get what you want. That is not what I mean. I do not know what you mean anymore. Molly closed the door. Dominic remained in the hallway for several seconds. Then his footsteps moved toward the stairs. The next morning, Lena's phone rang from an unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then an instinct sharpened inside her. She answered. Lena Hart. A woman's voice replied calm and polished. How quickly you remembered your old name. Lena's hand tightened around the phone. Vivian, we should speak. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. Vivian named a hotel tea room in Philadelphia. Noon. Alone. Then she ended the call. Molly begged Lena not to go. Lena went anyway. The hotel was old enough to turn wealth into tradition. Brass railings gleamed beneath chandeliers. Women in pearls spoke quietly over porcelain cups. Vivian sat near a tall window wearing a cream coat and black gloves. She did not stand when Lena approached. You look pale. I am pregnant and living from a suitcase. Vivian stirred her tea. There she is. I wondered whether any spine remained. Lena sat across from her. Say what you called me here to say. Vivian placed the spoon beside her cup. Sabrina followed my instructions perfectly. The room seemed to narrow. You arranged the restaurant. Yes. You wanted me to see them. Of course. Does Dominic know Dominic knows what I permit him to discover? For the first time, Lena understood something more frightening than Vivian's cruelty. Vivian did not believe she controlled the family. She believed she was the family. My son is sentimental, Vivian said. You mistook that sentiment for freedom. My mistake was believing he wanted to be free. Vivian's eyes sharpened. Dominic was born into responsibility. He was born into a prison and taught to call it a throne. A small silence passed between them. Then Vivian opened a folder. She slid several documents across the table. Lena did not touch them. What is that a clean exit? Vivian spoke as though she were discussing a property transfer. A divorce agreement, financial compensation, medical care through the birth, a private residence with security. And after the birth, we establish a suitable custody arrangement. Lena stared at her. Suitable for whom? For the child. My child. Vale blood. Lena placed one hand over her stomach. She belongs to herself. Vivian smiled. That is a beautiful sentence. Judges prefer facts. She turned another page. Your sister's flower shop has $23,000 in debt. The building owner intends to raise the rent in March. Your father's care facility costs more than either of you can afford. Lena's hands went cold. You investigated my family. I assessed risk. You mean weakness. I mean reality. Vivian leaned back. You have affection. We have infrastructure. Lena stood. You built an empire so large that you forgot a child is not territory. Vivian remained seated. If you leave this table, the offer disappears. Good. Lena walked away before Vivian could see her hands shaking. By 4 that afternoon, Molly had called in a favor. By 6, Lena sat inside a small law office above a bakery. Danielle Price listened without interrupting. She was in her 40s with short dark hair, a navy suit, and the focused stillness of someone who had spent years watching people lie under oath. Lena told her everything. The restaurant, the letter, the wrist, Vivian's confession, the proposed agreement, the threats involving Molly and their father. When Lena finished, Danielle asked, Do you have documents? Lena opened her bag. She placed copies of bank statements, property records, security invoices, messages from Vivian, and photographs of ledgers on the desk. Danielle examined them carefully. You were preparing. Lena swallowed. I was surviving. Danielle looked up. Survival leaves evidence. She gathered the papers into a neat stack. Vivian is not treating this as a family dispute. She is building a case. For what? To make you look unstable, emotional, unreasonable. If she writes the first version of the story, your pain becomes proof against you. Lena looked at Molly, and Dominic Danielle removed her glasses. That depends on whether he chooses to be your husband or his mother's heir. The first legal notice arrived the following morning. Charles Voss, a family attorney known for making cruelty sound respectable, accused Lena of abandoning the marital home and denying Dominic access to his unborn child. The filing described her as distressed, suspicious, and possibly affected by pregnancy-related paranoia. Molly read the pages over Lena's shoulder. They made you sound dangerous. Lena stared at the words. Her grief had become instability. Her escape had become abandonment. Her silence had become evidence. Danielle called before Lena could respond. Do not contact Dominic. Do not answer Vivian. Everything goes through me. What if they keep lying? They will. Lena closed her eyes. Then how do I stop them by refusing to let panic write your reply? That afternoon, Lena walked toward Danielle's office through heavy snow. A black sedan stopped beside the curb. Dominic stepped out. He wore no overcoat, only a dark suit jacket against the cold. I did not authorize the filing. Lena kept walking. Your mother did. That is not the same thing. She stopped. It becomes the same thing when you let her use your name. Dominic's eyes moved over her face, then to her stomach. I ordered her to stop. Did she? He said nothing. That is what I thought. 5 minutes. My lawyer told me not to be alone with you. Call her. Put her on speaker. Leave the doors unlocked. Lena should have refused, but the wind was brutal and her back ached. She entered the car. Dominic stayed behind the wheel with both hands visible. He did not lock the doors. For several moments, neither spoke. Then he said I moved out of the penthouse. Lena turned. Why, every room sounded like you leaving. She looked away. You do not get to say things like that unless you understand what they cost. I know I failed you. No, you know I left. Dominic stared through the windshield. I gave the organization the best of me. The traffic light ahead turned red. I gave you whatever remained. Lena went still. The honesty hurt more than an excuse. Dominic continued. I told my mother that if she attacks you again, I will walk away from everything. You will threaten it. I will do it. No. Someone will call. A shipment will vanish. A debt will come due. The Empire will need you louder than I do, and you will go back. His face went pale. The light turned green. A car behind them sounded its horn. Dominic did not move. Lena looked forward. The light changed. Let them wait. That is the problem. You always believe the world can wait because you are hurting. Dominic drove to the office. When he stopped, Lena reached for the door. Tell me what to do, he said. She closed her hand around the handle. I am not going to teach you how to become a husband after I had to disappear to make you listen. Lena, when your mother attacks me, stop telling me she is not you. She opened the door. Make it not you. 3 days later, Vivian requested a private legal meeting. Danielle advised Lena not to attend. Lena went. The conference room overlooked the Delaware River. Glass walls reflected gray water and winter sky. Vivian sat beside Charles Voss. Dominic was not there. My son's presence is unnecessary, Vivian said. Lena took a seat beside Danielle. You always preferred speaking for him. Voss opened a folder. We are here to discuss stability for the child. My child. Vivian's gaze lowered toward Lena's stomach. Vale blood. She offered a resident's medical care staff and financial support. After the birth, the child would spend most of her time under Vale supervision. Lena stared at her. You want me kept until I deliver. I want my granddaughter safe. From what poverty? Emotional decisions. Pride disguised as motherhood. Danielle leaned forward. Careful. Vivian ignored her. Then she placed a photograph on the table. Sabrina Cole leaving a private clinic. Sunglasses covered her eyes. One hand rested over her stomach. Lena looked at the image. Vivian spoke softly. Sabrina is pregnant. The room disappeared around Lena. 3 months. Danielle reached for the photograph. This proves nothing. There are medical records. Then provide them through legal discovery. Vivian watched Lena. Dominic does not know yet. Lena struggled to breathe. You made her do this too. Vivian smiled faintly. Sabrina understands sacrifice. No. Lena lifted her eyes. Sabrina understands payment. For the first time, Charles Voss looked uncomfortable. Vivian's expression cooled. You are outmatched. Lena pushed back her chair. I am not making a deal with the woman who tried to buy my daughter before she took her first breath. She walked out with Danielle beside her. Lena held herself together until the elevator doors closed. Then her knees weakened. Danielle caught her arm. She may be lying. She was too pleased. That makes it useful. It does not make it true. By evening, Lena had made her decision. She returned to Molly's apartment and pulled the gray suitcase from the closet. Molly followed her into the bedroom. No, she knows about Dad. She knows about the shop. She knows everything. So we fight here. She will make here unsafe. She does not get to push you out of every place. Lena stopped packing. She does not want me gone. Molly stared at her. She wants me desperate. The anger left Molly's face and became fear. Where will you go, Vermont? Vermont Danielle's aunt has a cabin outside Stowe. In winter, I need somewhere Vivian cannot reach through money courts or family. Molly sat on the edge of the bed. What do I tell Dominic? Lena opened the drawer and looked at the note he had sent. Come home. We can fix this. She folded it once and placed it back. Tell him I finally chose a place where his name cannot open the door. Near midnight, Molly held Lena beside the apartment entrance. Call me when you arrive. I will. Promise. Lena closed her eyes. I promise. At the bus station, she paid cash for a northbound ticket. She sat near the back with her suitcase beneath her feet. Her phone began to ring. Dominic. Lena watched his name until the call ended. A message appeared. Please talk to me. She turned the phone off. Outside the window, Lancaster disappeared beneath falling snow. Lena rested one hand over her daughter. I do not know where we are going, she whispered. The baby moved beneath her palm, but nobody there gets to call you property. The road north did not feel like freedom. It felt like punishment. The bus heater breathed dry air against Lena's legs while winter pressed its face to the windows. Lancaster disappeared behind her in a blur of streetlights and wet pavement. Houses gave way to farms. Farms gave way to dark fields. By midnight, the highway cut through forests, standing shoulder to shoulder beneath a hard black sky. Lena did not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dominic at the restaurant with Sabrina's hand in his. She saw Vivian across the conference table. She saw the photograph of Sabrina leaving the clinic with one hand resting over her stomach. Pregnant. The word sat inside Lena like a stone. She wanted to believe it was another lie. Vivian had arranged the dinner. Vivian had created the legal attack. Vivian had investigated Molly's debts and Samuel Hart's medical care. Lying about a pregnancy would not require a new kind of cruelty. Still, Lena had spent too many years trusting people who asked for faith while hiding the truth behind locked doors. Her phone remained off in her purse. She could still feel it as if Dominic's voice were trapped inside the dark screen. The baby shifted near dawn. Lena placed both hands over her stomach. You and me, she whispered. A woman sitting across the aisle looked up, then turned toward the window with the quiet mercy of a stranger who knew when not to ask questions. The bus reached Vermont after sunrise. Snow covered the ground in every direction. Hills rose behind small towns with white church steeples and brick storefronts. Smoke climbed from chimneys into a sky the color of steel. Lena changed buses in Burlington, then continued toward Stowe. By the time she arrived, her back ached, and her feet were swollen inside her boots. The driver placed her suitcase on the curb. You got someone coming for you? Lena looked down the narrow street. A coffee shop had just opened. A man shoveled snow from the sidewalk outside a hardware store. Beyond the buildings, mountains stood beneath clouds heavy with another storm. No, she said. I can manage. The driver glanced at her stomach. You sure? Lena nodded. He did not believe her, but he returned to the bus. Danielle's directions led to a cabin 3 miles outside town. Lena hired the only taxi waiting near the station. The driver was an older woman named Carol who talked about road conditions, school closures, and the possibility of more snow before evening. She asked no personal questions. The cabin stood beyond a line of bare maple trees near the edge of a frozen field. It was smaller than Lena expected. The roof sagged slightly over the porch. Snow covered the steps. A rusted metal chimney leaned toward the gray sky. Carol looked at the building. "You staying here alone for a while?" The driver watched Lena lift the suitcase. "There is a clinic in town. Grocery store closes at 7. Cell service gets strange when the wind comes from the mountain." "Thank you." Carol hesitated. Then she handed Lena a business card. "My number is on there. Call if you need a ride or if the heat stops working." Lena looked at the card. "You do not know me." Carol shrugged. "That is usually how knowing people starts." The taxi pulled away. Lena stood alone in the silence. Danielle had told her the key would be hidden beneath a ceramic owl near the porch. Lena found the owl half buried in snow. The lock resisted twice before the door opened. Cold air met her inside. The cabin smelled of cedar dust and old smoke. The furniture did not match. The kitchen floor tilted near the sink. A faded couch faced a stone fireplace. The windows trembled whenever the wind moved through the trees. Lena shut the door behind her. There were no guards, no cameras, no private elevator, no portrait of a dead Vale watching from the wall. She leaned against the door and took a full breath. Then she slid to the floor. The tears came quietly. She cried for the woman who had believed patience could save a marriage. She cried for the child inside her. She cried because the cabin was cold, because she was tired, because safety felt so empty when no one was there to witness it. After several minutes, she wiped her face and stood. The heating system woke with a series of metallic clanks. Lena found blankets inside a wooden chest and wrapped herself in 2 of them while the rooms slowly warmed. She unpacked only what she needed: vitamins in the bathroom cabinet, cash beneath a loose floorboard near the bed, medical papers in the kitchen drawer, her mother's silver cross beside the lamp. The ultrasound photograph went inside the closet door, hidden from anyone who might look through the windows. By evening, snow began falling again. Lena made tea in a chipped blue mug and watched the field disappear beneath white. She should have felt safe. Instead, she felt the size of the silence. At the Vale penthouse, silence had meant someone was speaking in a room she could not enter. At Vivian's table, silence had meant judgment. In the cabin, silence had no shape yet. It waited for Lena to decide whether it was peace or loneliness. The baby kicked. Lena touched her stomach. "I am trying," she said softly. The dizziness came 2 mornings later. Lena stood from the kitchen chair and the floor tilted beneath her. Dark spots crowded the edges of her vision. She caught the counter. The baby moved. Fear cut through the weakness. Lena waited until the room steadied, then pulled on her coat. The walk into town took nearly an hour. Snow had stopped, but the cold entered through every seam in her clothing. Her breath hurt. Twice she paused beside the road and considered turning back. A small white building stood near the center of town with a sign above the entrance. Harper Family Clinic. A bell chimed when Lena opened the door. The waiting room held 6 chairs, a basket of children's books, and a coffee machine that sounded close to death. A receptionist looked up. "Can I help you? I need to see a doctor. Do you have an appointment? No." The woman's eyes moved to Lena's stomach, then to her pale face. "Sit down." 20 minutes later, Lena sat on an examination table while Dr. June Harper wrapped a blood pressure cuff around her arm. Dr. Harper had short gray hair, warm brown skin, and the expression of someone who had spent decades listening to people lie about how much pain they could tolerate. "When are you due?" "Early April. Exact date April 9th. "That is better." Dr. Harper checked Lena's blood pressure twice. Then she listened to the baby's heartbeat. The sound filled the small room. Lena closed her eyes. "Doctor," Harper studied the chart. "You are dehydrated. Your pressure is higher than I like. Stress is not helping. I have been traveling, so I gathered." Dr. Harper placed the chart aside. "Are you hiding from someone?" Lena looked up. "No." The answer came too fast. Dr. Harper's expression did not change. "All right. Let me ask another way. You arrived in my town 6 months pregnant with no local records, paying in cash, wearing city boots in mountain snow, and looking at the door every time someone walks past." Lena folded her hands. "I am not in immediate danger. That is not the same as being safe." Lena looked toward the window. "I needed somewhere quiet. Quiet can help." Dr. Harper sat on a stool. "So can medical care. I can pay for today. I did not ask whether you could pay." Lena swallowed. "Why would you help me?" Dr. Harper leaned back. "Because care should not be a debt." The words entered Lena gently and broke something open. She turned her face away. Dr. Harper pretended not to notice. "You will come once a week, more often if your pressure rises. You will drink water. You will eat real food. You will not walk 3 miles through snow alone again. I do not have a car. We will solve that without turning it into a tragedy." Dr. Harper wrote something on a pad. "There is a pharmacy 2 blocks away. Tell Marcus I sent you. If he gives you trouble, tell him I remember what happened during the fishing tournament in 2004. Lena looked at her. "What happened?" "That is between Marcus and the state of Vermont." A laugh escaped Lena. It sounded unfamiliar. Dr. Harper smiled once. "There you are." Lena left the clinic carrying vitamins, a bottle of water, and the name of a local driver who charged less than Carol. The cold had sharpened by noon. She stopped at a diner with fogged windows and a red sign that read, "Bells." Inside, the air smelled of coffee butter and cinnamon. A woman with silver streaks in her hair approached with a menu. "You look frozen." "I feel frozen." "Sit before you prove it." Lena slid into a booth. The woman glanced at her stomach. "Tea decaf, please." "Food?" "I am not very hungry." That was not the question. Lena looked up. The woman smiled. "Hannah Bell." "I own the place." "Ownership makes people bossy." "Lena Hart." Hannah wrote nothing down. "Eggs, toast, and pancakes." "I did not order pancakes. The baby did." Lena almost argued. Then she saw the kindness beneath the command and let it go. At the next table, an older man folded his newspaper. He wore a wool cap and a flannel shirt beneath a heavy coat. "You staying at Miriam Price's cabin?" Lena went still. Hannah turned. "Eli." "What I repaired the chimney last fall." The man raised both hands. "I am Eli Dawson. Danielle's aunt called and said someone might be using the place." Lena studied him. How did she know I arrived small town? That is not an answer. It is the only answer we usually need. The following morning, Eli came to the cabin carrying a toolbox and a thermos. Lena watched from the doorway as he inspected the porch rail. "It is loose," he said. I noticed. "You plan to repair it?" "I planned not to fall. That is a temporary strategy." He worked without asking questions. He replaced 2 boards, tightened the steps, and checked the chimney. When he finished, he handed Lena the thermos. "Soup. You did not have to do that. Hannah made too much." "Did she?" That is what we say when pride is listening. Lena held the warm container against her chest. "Thank you." Eli looked at the cabin. Big houses do not always make safe houses. Lena met his eyes. You know that from experience. Everyone old knows that from experience. He left before she could ask more. The days began to take shape. Lena attended appointments with Dr. Harper. She ate breakfast at Hannah's diner twice a week. Eli repaired the kitchen window and refused payment. Carol drove her into town when the roads were bad. No one asked who the father was. No one asked why she woke whenever a black vehicle passed. At the public library, Lena discovered a children's reading hour that had been canceled after the former volunteer moved away. She offered to help. The librarian handed her a stack of books. On Tuesday afternoon, 6 children sat around Lena while snow fell beyond the windows. She opened a story about a bear searching for home. For the first time in months, she felt like herself. Not Mrs. Vale, not the unstable wife described in legal documents, not the pregnant woman Vivian intended to contain. Lena Hart, a teacher, a sister, a woman with a voice. In Philadelphia, Dominic sat inside his study with the search report unopened on the desk. His head of security stood near the door. We traced her north. Dominic looked at the folder. How far, Vermont? We can have an address by morning. Dominic reached for the report. For 1 second, his hand rested on the cover. Then he pushed it back. Stop looking. The security chief stared at him. She could be in danger. She believes the danger is me. We are responsible for her safety. No. Dominic's voice was quiet. I decided I was responsible for her choices. That is why she left. He ordered every investigator off the search. No surveillance, no tracking purchases, no calls to local police, no pressure on Danielle. The security chief left. Dominic remained at the desk. The old instinct still burned inside him. Find her. Bring her home. Remove anyone standing between them. He had spent his life mistaking access for love. Now the only proof he could offer was restraint. That evening he wrote a letter. It took 3 attempts. The first sounded like an argument. The second sounded like a confession designed to earn forgiveness. He burned both. The third contained no request. Danielle delivered it to Lena 4 days later. Lena recognized Dominic's handwriting. She left the envelope unopened until night. Then she sat beside the fireplace and read. Lena, I spent my life believing protection meant knowing where everyone was and controlling what they were allowed to do. I understand now that you did not need stronger walls. You needed a door I would not block. I blamed my mother because it was easier than admitting she could act through me only because I kept giving her room. I did not betray you in one restaurant. I betrayed you each time I chose silence because the truth was inconvenient. I am not asking you to return. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am trying to become a man who can hear no without treating it as an attack. Dominic. Lena read the letter twice. Then she placed it in the drawer beside her bed. She did not answer. She did not destroy it. While Lena rebuilt her days in Vermont, Dominic began dismantling the lie in Philadelphia. He met Sabrina in a private conference room above a hotel near Rittenhouse Square. She arrived wearing sunglasses and a white coat. Dominic placed the clinic photograph on the table. Show me the medical records. Sabrina removed her glasses. You should speak to Vivian. I am speaking to you. Her eyes moved toward the door. Dominic placed copies of wire transfers beside the photograph. Payments from a Vale holding company to Sabrina's private account. 1 payment before the restaurant. 2 after Lena disappeared. Another after the conference with Vivian. Sabrina's face lost its color. There is no baby, Dominic said. She looked down. No. The word barely carried across the table. Dominic remained still. You helped her threaten my wife. My father's company was failing. Vivian promised access to the ports and enough money to save us. So you sold her a pregnancy. I sold her photographs. You sold her fear. Sabrina's eyes filled. She said Lena would take the settlement. She said no one would be hurt. Dominic leaned closer. You watched my pregnant wife enter that restaurant. Sabrina did not answer. You knew exactly who would be hurt. She covered her face for a moment. Then she confessed. The clinic photographs were staged. The medical papers had been altered. Charles Voss arranged the documents. Vivian paid for every appearance, every touch, every photograph. Dominic recorded the statement after Sabrina agreed to speak with an attorney present. When the meeting ended, he remained alone. He should have felt relief. Instead, he understood how easily everyone around him had learned to call cruelty business. The deeper records appeared inside Vivian's private archive. Dominic found them while searching for payments to Sabrina and Voss. One file carried his father's name. Richard Vale had died 8 years earlier from heart failure. Dominic opened the folder expecting insurance papers. Inside were payments to a private nurse missing laboratory results and an order for digitalis issued through a pharmacy owned by a Vale associate. There were also drafts of documents Richard had prepared before his death. He intended to dissolve several illegal operations. He planned to transfer control of the legitimate companies away from Vivian. Dominic read the pages twice. Then he called the retired physician who signed the death certificate. The man refused to speak. Dominic sent him copies of the payments. 20 minutes later, the physician called back. His voice shook. Your father was not supposed to die that night. Dominic sat in silence. Vivian had not merely preserved the empire after Richard's death. She had prepared for it. 2 days later, Dominic met Agent Noah Briggs inside an empty church. Briggs had investigated the Vale family for more than a decade. He looked at the file Dominic placed on the pew. You understand, this does not buy absolution. I did not ask for it. You could lose your businesses. Yes, your money. Yes, your freedom. Dominic looked toward the dark altar. My wife left because everyone in my life believed consequences belonged to someone else. Briggs opened the file. And now they begin with me. In Vermont, Lena began noticing the black sport utility vehicle outside the clinic. It appeared near the library the following day. The windows were dark. The license plate changed. Eli saw it parked across from Hannah's diner. He sat beside Lena without looking toward the street. You know them. I know what cars like that mean. Do you want the sheriff? I do not know. That was not my question. Lena looked at him. Yes. By afternoon, the vehicle was gone. For the next week, Eli or Carol accompanied Lena whenever she left the cabin. No one spoke about protection. They simply arrived. Danielle confirmed the vehicle did not belong to Dominic's current security team. That information did not comfort Lena. Vivian had always known how to use men without placing her name in their hands. When Dominic learned about the vehicle, he did not drive to Vermont. He called Danielle. Ask Lena whether I may come. Danielle was silent. You are asking permission. Yes. Lena refused the first request. Dominic accepted the answer. The following day, Danielle called again. He has evidence that Sabrina was never pregnant. Lena sat beside the cabin window. And Vivian. There is more. They met at Hannah's diner during daylight. Dominic arrived alone. He looked thinner. Tiredness had carved shadows beneath his eyes. He stopped beside the booth. May I sit? Lena nodded. He placed Sabrina's signed confession on the table. There was no pregnancy. Relief entered Lena so quickly it made her angry. She read every page. Then she looked at him. You let your mother become powerful enough to do this. Yes, you stood beside her for years. Yes, you benefited from everything she built. Yes. Dominic did not defend himself. Lena closed the document. What else? He told her about his father. The digitalis, the missing records, the documents Richard planned to sign. Lena stared at him. You think Vivian killed him? I know she arranged it. What are you going to do? I gave the records to a federal agent. The diner seemed to grow quieter. You could go to prison. I know. You could lose everything. I should lose what was built by hurting people. Lena searched his face. Are you doing this to get me back? At first, I wanted to destroy anything that kept you from me. His voice was low. Then I understood that was the same disease wearing a different face. He looked down at his hands. I am doing it because our daughter should not inherit a kingdom built from fear. Lena did not forgive him, but she believed him. That frightened her almost as much as the lies had. Dominic left before dark. He did not ask to see the cabin. He did not ask to touch her stomach. He did not ask when she would return. That night, Vivian called. Lena stood beside the window while snow moved across the field. You believe my son has chosen you, Vivian said. He chose to tell the truth. Panic often resembles courage in men who are not accustomed to losing. He gave evidence to federal investigators. Silence filled the line. When Vivian spoke again, her voice had changed. Men returned to the identities that made them powerful. Perhaps. Lena watched her reflection in the glass. But I am not returning to the woman who waited for him. You are carrying something that belongs to my family. Lena placed one hand over her daughter. No. Her voice remained calm. I am carrying someone your family will never own. She ended the call and turned off the phone. Outside, the snow continued falling. Inside, the cabin door remained locked. For the first time, Lena did not wonder whether Dominic could open it. She understood that he was finally learning not to try. The first federal warrant was signed before sunrise. By 8, Agent Noah Briggs had 3 teams moving through Philadelphia. One entered the Vale freight offices near the river. Another took control of 2 private warehouses in South Philadelphia. The third walked into the law firm of Charles Voss with sealed orders, evidence bags, and enough authority to make the receptionist stop pretending they did not recognize the names on the documents. Dominic watched none of it. He sat alone inside a small conference room at the federal building while rain moved against the windows. A cup of coffee had gone cold near his hand. Across from him, Briggs turned pages inside a thick file. You understand what happens once I submit this? Yes. We seize financial records. We question employees. We freeze accounts connected to the Vale companies. Dominic looked toward the gray city below. Do it. Briggs studied him. There are names in these ledgers that could destroy judges, police officials, union leaders, and people your family protected for decades. They were not protected. Dominic's voice was quiet. They were purchased. Briggs closed the file. And you? Dominic looked back at him. I was purchased before I knew the price. That does not remove responsibility. I know. Briggs waited for an argument. None came. Dominic had spent most of his life surrounded by men who fought every accusation. They blamed fathers, rivals, poverty, loyalty, fear. They called their choices inevitable until no one could identify the moment they had chosen anything at all. Dominic no longer wanted inevitability. He wanted the truth, even when the truth had his fingerprints on it. Briggs leaned forward. Sabrina Cole signed a formal statement this morning. She confirmed the false pregnancy, the staged photographs, and Vivian's payments. Will she testify? She says she will. Does she understand what Vivian will do if she learns that Briggs gave him a hard look? She is under federal protection. Dominic almost laughed. The sound did not contain humor. My mother has spent 40 years teaching people that protection belongs to whoever controls the doors. Then perhaps she is about to discover some doors do not belong to her. Briggs pushed a second file across the table. It contained photographs of Charles Voss entering a federal office late the previous night. He is cooperating too. Dominic opened the file. Why? Because your mother prepared documents placing all responsibility for the false medical records on him. Dominic looked at the photograph. Voss appeared older than he had at the conference table. His expensive coat hung badly on his shoulders. Fear had changed the shape of his face. He thought he was useful, Dominic said. Briggs nodded. She decided he was disposable. Dominic closed the file. That is how she loves people. The rain continued against the glass. For the first time since Lena left, Dominic felt the empire shifting beneath him. Not collapsing yet. Breathing before the fall. Vivian called him at 11. He let the phone ring twice before answering. "You have made a serious mistake," she said. Dominic leaned back in the chair. "You always say that when someone makes a decision you cannot control. Federal agents entered our offices." "I know. You gave them access." "Yes." Silence followed. Dominic could picture her inside the mainline estate, standing beside the tall windows in the morning room. She would be dressed perfectly. Her coffee would be untouched. Staff would be moving carefully through the house, sensing danger without understanding its shape. "You are frightened," Vivian said. "No. You lost your wife and became sentimental. I lost my wife because I spent years becoming you." Her voice cooled. "You were never strong enough to become me." Dominic looked at his reflection in the window. "I used to think that was an insult. Come to the estate." "No. We will discuss this privately. There is nothing private left." Vivian breathed once into the phone. Dominic. He recognized the tone. It had corrected him as a child. It had ordered him to stand straight beside his father's coffin. It had trained him to hide grief before he understood what grief was. He answered calmly. "I will come this evening." Then he ended the call. Briggs stood near the door. "You should not go alone. I need her to speak freely. You already have evidence. I need to hear her say it. For the case." Dominic rose. "For me." The Vale estate looked unchanged when he arrived. The iron gates opened before his car stopped. White stone walls stood against the darkening sky. Warm light glowed through tall windows. The house had always seemed permanent. That evening it looked like a monument built by people who assumed history would never ask questions. Dominic entered without security. The staff had disappeared from the main floor. Vivian sat at the far end of the dining table beneath Richard Vale's portrait. 2 glasses waited beside an unopened bottle of wine. "You came alone," she said. "So did you. I do not need men standing behind me to feel powerful." "No. You only need everyone else to believe they cannot leave." Vivian gestured toward the chair opposite her. Dominic remained standing. She looked at his empty hands. "No weapon. I did not come to kill you. How noble. I came to ask about my father." For the first time, something moved behind her eyes. It disappeared quickly. "Your father has been dead for 8 years." Dominic placed a folder on the table. The pharmacy order sat on top. Vivian did not touch it. "Digitalis," he said. "Private nurse. Missing laboratory results. Payments made through one of your holding companies." Vivian lifted her wine glass. "You have been speaking to federal agents too long. They make coincidence sound theatrical. Richard planned to close the river operations. He was tired. He planned to remove you from the companies. He was confused. He died 2 days before he could sign the papers." Vivian took a small sip. Dominic watched her. "You killed him?" She set the glass down. "No." The answer came too easily. Dominic stepped closer. "You arranged his death." Vivian looked toward Richard's portrait. "Your father had become dangerous. To whom? To everything he built. He wanted to stop hurting people. He wanted to surrender because age made him weak." Dominic felt something inside him grow still. "You poisoned your husband. I preserved this family. He was your family. He was going to destroy what generations had sacrificed to create. Vivian's voice sharpened for the first time. Men like your father become moral when they are too tired to defend what immorality purchased for them. Dominic stared at her. There it was. Not a confession shaped for court. Something worse. Belief. Vivian believed every death could become duty if the family name survived it. Dominic looked around the dining room. The silver, the portraits, the polished wood, the walls that had held generations of threats disguised as tradition. And Lena? He asked. Vivian's face hardened. She is irrelevant to your father. She was irrelevant to you. She distracted you. My daughter. Your daughter is the future. She is a child. She is a veil. Dominic moved to the end of the table. No, she is a person. People are temporary. Bloodlines endure. That is the difference between us. Vivian stood. You think one frightened woman in Vermont changed you? She showed me what I had become. She abandoned you. She escaped me. The words entered the room and stayed there. Vivian's expression tightened. You sound weak. I sound honest. You surrendered your companies to strangers. You exposed men who were loyal to your father. You destroyed your daughter's inheritance. Dominic removed the veil signet ring from his hand. The gold had belonged to Richard before him. He placed it beside the wine bottle. I am ending her inheritance. Vivian stared at the ring. You cannot walk away from blood. No. Dominic looked at her. But I can stop worshipping it. She moved around the table. Her calm had begun to fracture. Destroy the evidence. No, withdraw your cooperation. No, I will end the custody action. Lena can raise the child wherever she likes. You may visit as often as you wish. Dominic almost pitied her. Even now, Vivian believed every human choice could be converted into terms. You still think this is a negotiation. Everything is. No, some things are consequences. Vivian stopped several feet away. If you leave this house, you lose everything. Dominic looked toward the portrait of his father. I already lost everything that mattered. He turned toward the door. Vivian's voice followed him. She will never trust you. Dominic stopped. She may not. She will never forget what you are. She should not. She will take your daughter and build a life in which you are tolerated. Dominic faced her one last time. That is more than I earned. For the first time, Vivian had no answer. Dominic left the estate without the ring. Federal agents placed the first restraints on Vale accounts the following morning. Employees were questioned. Warehouses were sealed. News vans gathered outside the freight offices. Photographs of Dominic appeared across every local channel, though no reporter knew where he was. He stayed in a small hotel near the Federal Building and continued answering questions. Names became dates. Dates became payments. Payments became crimes. Each truth removed another stone from the empire. In Vermont, Lena watched the reports from Hannah's diner. The television above the counter showed federal agents carrying boxes from a Vale office. A reporter stood in the rain beneath an umbrella. The words corruption conspiracy and criminal investigation moved across the bottom of the screen. Hannah placed tea in front of Lena. Is that his family? Lena looked at Dominic's photograph. Yes. Is he in trouble? Yes. Hannah waited. Are you worried about him? Lena wrapped both hands around the cup. Yes. She hated the answer. It was still true. Outside, snow began falling in soft, steady sheets. Eli entered the diner and removed his cap. There is a dark vehicle near the clinic again. Lena's fingers tightened around the cup. Same one, different plate, same kind of people. Hannah turned off the television. Sheriff. Already called. Lena stood. The baby shifted low in her stomach. A pressure moved through her back. She rested one hand against the table. Hannah noticed. You all right? Just tired. Eli looked toward the window. I will take you home. The road to the cabin had nearly disappeared beneath snow. Eli drove slowly while wind pushed against the truck. Lena watched the mirrors. A black vehicle followed them for half a mile, then turned away when a sheriff's cruiser appeared at the intersection. Eli said nothing until they reached the cabin. He helped Lena inside. "You lock the door." "I know. I will stay nearby." "You do not have to. That is becoming a tired sentence." Lena managed a small smile. Eli returned to his truck. The snow thickened after dark. By 9, the wind had become violent. Branches scraped against the roof. The cabin lights flickered twice. Lena sat near the fireplace with a blanket around her shoulders and Dominic's letter in her lap. She had read it enough times to remember every line. "You needed a door I would not block." A vehicle moved beyond the trees. Lena froze. Headlights appeared through the snow. Not Eli's truck. The black sport utility vehicle stopped near the road. 2 men stepped out. They wore dark coats and moved with the controlled purpose Lena had seen in Dominic's security teams. Her phone was already in her hand. She called Danielle. "They are here. Who I do not know. 2 men. Black vehicle. Lock everything. Call the sheriff." Lena moved toward the kitchen. One of the men crossed the field. The other remained near the vehicle. A fist struck the front door. "Mrs. Vale." Lena backed away. Her heart pounded so hard the room seemed to pulse around her. "Mrs. Vale, we are here to take you to a medical facility." She did not answer. The man knocked again. "Your family is concerned about the storm. My family is not here." Her voice sounded stronger than she felt. "We have instructions. From Vivian Silence." That was answer enough. The pressure in Lena's lower back tightened. She gripped the counter. The first man tried the door. The lock held. Lena called the sheriff with shaking fingers. The dispatcher told her officers were on the way, but the roads were dangerous. Another contraction moved through her. This one was stronger. Lena bent forward. No. Warm fluid spread down her legs. She stared at the floor. Her water had broken. The man outside struck the door harder. Mrs. Vale opened the door. Lena pressed one hand to her stomach. "Stay away from us." Headlights appeared through the trees. A truck horn sounded. Eli's vehicle came across the field with the sheriff's cruiser behind it. The men outside ran back toward the black vehicle. Tires spun in the snow. The vehicle disappeared down the road as the cruiser followed. Eli reached the porch. "Lena." She opened the door. He saw her face, then the wet floor behind her. "Oh, Lord. My water broke." Eli lifted his phone. "I am calling June. The hospital. The mountain road is closed near the bridge." Fear entered Lena's chest. "No." Eli stepped inside. "Dr. Harper has delivered babies in worse places than this. I cannot do this here." Another contraction came. Lena caught the door frame and cried out. Eli moved toward her, then stopped before touching. "Tell me what you need." Lena looked at him through the pain. "June." "Doctor." Harper arrived 20 minutes later in a 4-wheel drive truck with medical bags and 2 clinic nurses. Hannah came behind them carrying towels, blankets, and enough food for a week. The cabin changed quickly. The kitchen table became a supply station. Water heated on the stove. Clean sheets covered the bed. Dr. Harper checked Lena's blood pressure and listened to the baby's heartbeat. "The baby is doing well." Lena gripped the edge of the mattress. "I need a hospital. The road is blocked. I cannot have her here." Dr. Harper held her gaze. "Yes, you can. I am afraid. I know." "No, you do not understand." Lena's voice broke. "Vivian tried to take her. Those men came for us. I cannot lose her." Dr. Harper placed both hands around Lena's. "No one is taking your child." Another contraction tore through her. Lena screamed. Miles. South Dominic's phone rang inside the federal building. Danielle's name appeared. He answered immediately. "Lena is in labor." Dominic stood. "We're at the cabin. I am leaving. The roads are dangerous. I do not care." She was approached by 2 men connected to Vivian. Every sound in the room disappeared. "Is she hurt?" "No." The sheriff arrived. She went into labor. Dominic reached for his coat. Briggs stepped into his path. "You cannot disappear during an active investigation. My daughter is being born." "I know." Dominic stared at him. Briggs moved aside. "Take my vehicle. It has federal plates." Dominic drove north through the storm. Snow erased the road faster than the plows could clear it. Wind pushed against the car. More than once the tires lost their hold. He kept both hands on the wheel. Every mile felt like a punishment measured in seconds. Near Stowe, Danielle called again. "You need to stop before you reach the cabin." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Why, Lena has not asked for you. She is in labor. Yes, she may need me. That is her decision." The old instinct rose before he could stop it. Go to her. Open every road. Remove every person who says no. Then he remembered Lena standing beside the car in Lancaster. "Make it not you." Dominic pulled onto the shoulder near a closed gas station. Snow gathered across the windshield. "Tell her I am here," he said. "I will." He ended the call. Then he waited. Inside the cabin, labor narrowed Lena's world to breath pain and Dr. Harper's voice. Hours passed without shape. The storm shook the walls. Hannah wiped Lena's face with a cool cloth. Eli kept the fire burning. At one point, Lena looked toward the window. "Did Dominic come?" Dr. Harper glanced at Danielle, who had arrived during a break in the weather. Danielle stepped closer. "He is waiting near town." Lena closed her eyes. "He did not come here. You did not ask him to." A contraction tightened across her body. Lena gripped the sheets. The fact that Dominic had stayed away hurt. It also healed something. He had finally reached a locked door and chosen not to break it. Another wave of pain came. Lena cried out. When it passed, she opened her eyes. "Call him." Danielle studied her. "Are you certain?" "Yes." Dominic reached the cabin 15 minutes later. He entered with snow covering his coat and fear stripped openly across his face. He stopped inside the doorway. Lena lay on the bed exhausted and pale. Their eyes met. Dominic did not move closer. "Tell me where to stand," he said. Lena looked at the chair beside her. "There." He crossed the room and sat. His hands rested on his knees. He did not touch her. A contraction began. Lena reached for him first. Dominic took her hand. Her fingers crushed his. He did not pull away. "I cannot do this," Lena whispered. "Yes, you can. Do not tell me what I can do." Dominic swallowed. "You are right." He leaned closer. "You are here." Lena breathed through the pain. "You are safe." Her grip tightened. "You are not alone," Dr. Harper spoke from the end of the bed. "Lena, listen to me. It is time." In Philadelphia, federal vehicles moved through the Vale estate gates. Vivian stood beneath Richard's portrait when Agent Briggs entered the dining room. She wore a dark blue dress and the Vale signet ring Dominic had left behind. Briggs approached with 2 agents. "Vivian Vale, you are under arrest." She did not move. "On what charge? Conspiracy, fraud, obstruction, attempted custodial interference, bribery, and the murder of Richard Vale." The staff watched from the hall. Vivian looked toward the portrait above her. Then she extended her hands. The restraints closed around her wrists. At the cabin, Lena screamed. Dominic held her hand with both of his. Dr. Harper's voice remained calm. "One more." Lena shook her head. "I cannot." Dominic looked at her. He did not command. He did not promise there would be no pain. He stayed. Lena pushed. A cry filled the room. High, sharp, alive. For 1 second, no one moved. Then Dr. Harper lifted the baby and placed her against Lena's chest. Lena looked down, a small red face, dark hair damp against a perfect head, tiny fingers opening and closing near Lena's skin. The world became quiet. Dominic stared at his daughter. Tears moved down his face without shame. Lena pressed her lips against the baby's forehead. "Her name is Ivy." Dominic's voice broke. "Ivy." He touched nothing. He waited. After several minutes, Lena looked at him. "Do you want to hold her?" Dominic inhaled sharply. "May I?" The question carried every door he had once opened without permission. Lena nodded. She placed Ivy in his arms. Dominic held his daughter as though strength had nothing to do with tightening his grip. Ivy opened her eyes for a moment. Dominic looked down at her. "I am sorry," he whispered. Lena heard him. She did not tell him the baby could not understand. Perhaps the apology was not only for Ivy. By morning, news of Vivian's arrest had reached every national network. The Vale estate was sealed. Bank accounts were frozen. Several city officials resigned before agents reached their offices. Everett Cole was questioned about the payments connected to Sabrina. Charles Voss entered federal protection. The empire that had taken generations to build began collapsing in public. Dominic stayed beside Lena until she fell asleep. Then he moved to the chair near the door. He did not climb into the bed. He did not assume the birth had restored what the marriage lost. When Lena woke, Ivy slept against her chest. Dominic stood near the window. She watched him for a moment. "You being here does not mean we are together." He turned. "I know. You are Ivy's father. That gives you responsibilities." "Yes, it does not give you ownership." "I understand. You will not place guards near us without my permission." "All right. You will not send money and call it a decision." "Yes. If I say no, you will not ask someone else to make it a yes." Dominic looked at her. "I understand." Lena shook her head. "No." He waited. "You are beginning to understand." Dominic lowered his eyes. "You are right." Lena looked down at Ivy. Outside, the storm had begun to weaken. Morning light reached through the windows and touched the floor in thin silver lines. The cabin was crowded, imperfect, and warm. Dominic stood near the door. For the first time in his life, he did not ask whether he was allowed to stay. He waited for Lena to decide. After a long silence, she looked toward the empty chair beside the bed. "You can sit." Dominic crossed the room. He sat carefully. Between them, Ivy slept with one small hand curled against Lena's heart. Ivy slept between them while the storm loosened its grip on the mountains. Dominic remained in the chair beside Lena's bed until morning. He did not speak unless she asked him a question. He did not reach for the baby without permission. When Ivy cried, he waited for Lena to look at him before standing. The restraint looked unnatural on him. For most of his life, Dominic had entered rooms as though every door had been built for him. Men stepped aside. Conversations stopped. Decisions became final when he arrived. Now he sat in a small Vermont cabin with snow melting from his shoes, waiting to be told whether he could hold his own daughter. Lena noticed every time he stopped himself. She also noticed that part of her was still waiting for him to fail. 2 days after Ivy's birth, the mountain road reopened. Dr. Harper arranged for Lena and the baby to be transferred to a hospital outside Burlington for observation. Lena's blood pressure remained high, and Ivy needed a full examination after the difficult delivery. Dominic rode in a separate vehicle. He did not ask to join the ambulance. At the hospital, he signed every form placed before him, but made no medical decision without Lena's approval. When a nurse asked whether he was Lena's husband, he looked at Lena before answering. "Legally, yes." Lena heard the pause. The nurse glanced between them, and emotionally, Dominic's expression did not change. "That is not mine to answer." Lena looked away before he could see how deeply the words affected her. The federal investigation continued while she recovered. Vivian was denied release after prosecutors argued she had the money connections and willingness to intimidate witnesses. Her attorneys called the accusations exaggerated. News stations repeated old photographs of charity galas, political dinners, and ribbon-cutting ceremonies. Every image showed Vivian smiling beside people who now claimed they had barely known her. The Vale organization came apart quickly once fear stopped protecting it. Employees who had remained silent for years began speaking. Accountants turned over hidden ledgers. Union officials admitted accepting bribes. 2 city inspectors resigned. A judge disappeared for 3 days before surrendering to federal agents at his attorney's office. Dominic spent hours each morning speaking with investigators. In the afternoons, he returned to the hospital. He always knocked, even when the door was open. At first, Lena thought it was an act. Then he did it when no one was watching. One afternoon, Ivy was asleep in the clear hospital bassinet beside the window. Lena sat upright in bed trying to understand an insurance form. A quiet knock came at the door. Dominic stood outside holding a paper bag. "You can come in." He entered. "I brought food. I am not hungry." "I know." Lena looked at him. "That sounds like you are about to ignore me." Dominic stopped. The old version of him would have placed the food on the table and told her to eat. He would have called it concern. Instead, he held the bag at his side. "Would you like me to leave it?" Lena looked at the hospital tray she had barely touched. "What is it, soup from Hannah's diner?" She sent it. "Yes." "Then leave it." Dominic placed the bag on the table. He did not open it. He sat in the chair near the wall. After several minutes, Lena reached for the soup herself. Dominic said nothing. That was how their new life began. Not with declarations, with pauses, with questions. With Dominic learning that love did not become weaker when it asked permission. When Lena and Ivy left the hospital, Lena returned to the cabin. Dominic rented a room at a small inn in town. He did not ask where Lena kept the spare key. He came when invited and left when asked. The first weeks were difficult. Ivy slept in short bursts. Lena's body ached. Her emotions changed without warning. Some mornings she woke filled with gratitude. By evening, fear moved through her so strongly that even the sound of a car on the road made her shake. Dominic saw it happen once. He had arrived to deliver diapers and formula. A black vehicle passed the cabin slowly. Lena froze near the kitchen window. Her breathing changed. Dominic turned toward the road. The old anger appeared in his face. "Who is that I do not know?" He reached for his phone. Lena looked at him. "No." Dominic's hand stopped. "I can have the license traced." "No." "They may be watching you. It could be a tourist." And if it is not, Lena's pulse beat hard in her throat. I said no. For 1 second, Dominic stood between the instinct to control and the choice to listen. Then he placed the phone on the counter. "All right." The vehicle continued down the road and disappeared. Dominic looked at Lena. "What do you need?" She did not know. That frightened her more than the car. "I need you not to solve this." He nodded. "What should I do instead?" "Stay until I stop shaking." Dominic sat at the kitchen table. He did not speak. He stayed. The criminal case against him took shape slowly. Agent Briggs returned several times with new questions. Dominic admitted ordering threats, approving illegal payments, concealing financial records, and obstructing investigations. He did not blame Vivian. He did not claim ignorance. When his attorney suggested emphasizing the pressure he had inherited from his family, Dominic refused. "I made the decisions." His attorney leaned across the table. "Context matters, not more than choice." The cooperation agreement prevented the longest possible prison sentence, but it did not leave Dominic untouched. He surrendered his ownership in several companies. Most of his accounts were frozen. Properties connected to criminal money were seized. Funds were established for restitution. He accepted 18 months of home confinement and 5 years of federal supervision. He was prohibited from working in freight construction, private security, and union management. The mainline estate was sold. The penthouse was seized. The cars disappeared. The paintings, jewelry, wine, and furniture were cataloged and removed. Dominic signed every transfer. When a federal officer asked whether he wanted to keep his father's watch, Dominic looked at the gold face for a long time. No. It had been purchased with money he no longer wanted Ivy to inherit. 6 months after the storm, Lena moved into a small rented house outside Stowe. It had 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and a porch facing the mountains. The roof did not leak. The floors were level. The front door had a lock Lena chose herself. She returned to work 3 mornings a week at the local school. At first, she worried about leaving Ivy. Then she discovered that teaching restored parts of her no amount of rest could reach. Children asked direct questions. They did not care who Dominic had been. They cared whether Lena remembered where they had stopped in the story. She also started a Saturday reading group at the library. Parents brought toddlers, snacks, and books with damaged covers. Ivy slept in a carrier against Lena's chest while she read aloud. For the first time in years, Lena earned money that did not pass through a Vale account. It was not much. It was hers. Danielle helped recover funds Vivian had illegally redirected from Samuel Hart's medical trust. Molly restructured the debts on the flower shop and began supplying arrangements to several hotels in Vermont. Samuel's care continued without Vivian's money. The knowledge mattered to Lena. It meant Vivian had not been right. Infrastructure was not the same as strength. Dominic rented a modest house 20 minutes away. During home confinement, federal officers approved regular visits with Ivy at Lena's home. He arrived exactly on time, never early enough to pressure her, never late enough to make her wait. The first time Lena left him alone with Ivy for an hour, Dominic looked more frightened than he had during the federal interviews. Lena placed the diaper bag near the couch. Her bottle is in the refrigerator. I know. She may refuse it if it is too warm. I know. She likes the blue blanket. I know. Lena looked at him. Dominic's expression softened. You have told me 3 times. I am trying to decide whether this is a mistake. He did not become offended. That is fair. Lena waited. He did not promise everything would be fine. He did not remind her that he was Ivy's father. He simply stood beside the couch with his hands visible. What would make it easier? Call me if she cries longer than 10 minutes. I will, and do not ask anyone else to come. I will not. Lena left. She drove 3 blocks and pulled into a parking lot. Her hands shook around the steering wheel. Every frightened part of her imagined returning to an empty house. Dominic taking Ivy. Dominic deciding Lena was too anxious to be trusted. Vivian's voice telling a judge that Lena was unstable. The phone remained silent. After 20 minutes, Lena forced herself to continue to the grocery store. When she returned, Dominic sat in the rocking chair. Ivy was asleep against his chest. A bottle rested on the table. Dominic looked up. She cried for 7 minutes. Lena set down the grocery bag, and I stayed. The answer entered the room quietly. Lena walked closer. Ivy's small hand rested against Dominic's shirt. He had once commanded an empire with a phone call. Now he looked proud because a baby had fallen asleep in his arms. Ordinary fatherhood changed him in ways punishment could not. Ivy did not care whether he had been feared. She did not care how much money he once controlled. She cried when she was hungry. She laughed when he made ridiculous sounds. She grabbed his hair and refused to release it. Nothing about her could be negotiated. One evening, Ivy cried for nearly an hour. Dominic walked through the living room holding her. He checked the diaper, the bottle, the blanket, and the temperature. Nothing worked. Finally, he looked at Lena. What am I doing wrong? Nothing. She is still crying. Babies do that, so I cannot fix it. Lena shook her head. You can stay. Dominic looked down at Ivy. Then he sat in the rocking chair and held her against his chest. He did not search for another solution. He remained there. Eventually, Ivy slept. Lena watched from the doorway. For Dominic, staying without controlling was becoming its own kind of courage. He still made mistakes. When Lena's car broke down in February, Dominic arranged for a new vehicle to be delivered to her house. He believed he was helping. Lena opened the front door and found a dark blue vehicle parked in the driveway with a ribbon across the hood. The sight made her furious. Dominic arrived 10 minutes later. It has better safety ratings. You bought me a car. The old one failed on an icy road. You made a decision about my life without asking. His expression tightened. I was concerned about Ivy. And there it is. What you used her safety to give yourself permission. Dominic looked toward the car. It is safer. That is not the point. He opened his mouth. Lena saw the argument forming. The old words. I was trying to protect you. Then Dominic stopped. He took a breath. You are right. Lena crossed her arms. You cannot fix this by agreeing quickly. I know. Do you? He looked at the keys in his hand. I decided that because my reason was good, your permission was unnecessary. Yes, I am sorry. Lena waited. Dominic called the dealership and had the vehicle removed that afternoon. The next morning, he knocked on Lena's door. Would you like a recommendation for a mechanic? Yes. Would you like me to help pay? No. All right. He handed her a business card. Lena took it. That moment mattered more than the car. Dominic's change was not perfect. It became real each time he corrected himself without demanding praise. Vivian's case moved toward trial. Evidence from Richard's death was strong, but her attorneys fought every charge. After months of negotiation, Vivian accepted a plea agreement. 15 years in federal prison. Permanent loss of the estate and most remaining assets. No contact with Lena or Ivy. No contact through attorneys' employees, family friends, or intermediaries. Before sentencing, Vivian requested a private meeting with Dominic. He refused. She sent him a letter instead. The envelope remained on his table for 3 days. Dominic brought it to his therapist. He read it there. Vivian did not apologize. She wrote that the family had survived because she had been willing to make choices weaker people could not understand. She told Dominic that Lena would eventually use his guilt against him. She claimed Ivy would grow up ashamed of the name Dominic had destroyed. The final line read, "One day you will understand that everything I did was for you." Dominic took the letter to Lena's house that evening. They stood beside the fireplace. He placed the pages into the flames. The paper darkened and curled. She still believes love is proven by what you are willing to destroy, he said. Lena watched the final page collapse into ash. Then Ivy will learn something different. Dominic looked toward the crib near the wall. Yes. 1 year after Ivy's birth, Lena found Dominic sitting on the porch after a scheduled visit. He held a folded piece of paper. She recognized it immediately. The letter she had left beside her wedding ring. You kept it. It was the only honest thing left in the penthouse. Lena sat in the chair across from him. I have read it more times than I can count, Dominic said. It was not written for you to memorize. What was it written for? So I could hear myself tell the truth. He looked down at the paper. Then he held it out. Lena did not take it at first. What are you doing? Giving it back. Why? It belongs to the woman who saved herself. Lena took the letter. The folds had softened from use. That night after Ivy fell asleep, Lena read it again. She remembered the penthouse, the suitcase, Dominic's hand around her wrist, and the elevator doors closing. The final line no longer felt like grief. Do not search for me until you understand why I had to become missing before you could finally see me. Dominic no longer searched for her. He arrived when invited. He knocked. He waited. Several weeks later, Dominic stood on Lena's porch wearing a dark wool coat. She opened the door. Is something wrong with Ivy number Courtnam? Then why are you here? He looked almost nervous. Would you have dinner with me Friday? Lena stared at him. Is this a date I believe that depends on your answer? Where Hannah's diner? No private room. No security inside. No security anywhere. Lena considered him. 7 o'clock. Dominic smiled. 7. The date was awkward. They sat in a booth beneath a window fogged by the cold. Hannah watched them from behind the counter and made no attempt to hide it. Dominic ordered coffee. Lena ordered pie. For several minutes they spoke only about Ivy. Then Lena stopped him. If this is a date, we cannot spend all evening being parents. Dominic looked down at his cup. I do not know how to date you. You managed once. I was lying about half my life. That is true. He almost smiled. They spoke about teaching therapy fear and the difference between regret and change. Dominic did not promise forever. He did not ask Lena to trust him. I do not expect you to believe the man I say I am, he told her. Watch the man I keep choosing to become. Lena did. Over the next year, they rebuilt slowly. Dominic knocked before entering. He asked before touching her. He accepted changed plans without anger. He supported her work without attempting to fund it. He told the truth, even when the truth made him look weak. Lena also changed. She learned to speak before resentment became silence. She began therapy for trauma and anxiety after Ivy's birth. When she was frightened, she stopped saying she was fine. One evening, Dominic arrived 20 minutes late after a meeting with his supervision officer. Lena was standing near the window when he entered. I called, he said. My phone was upstairs. I am sorry. Lena looked at the clock. When you are late, my body still believes you chose the Empire. Dominic did not tell her the Empire was gone. He did not call the fear irrational. I cannot change what your body remembers, he said. Lena looked at him. I can keep arriving until it learns something new. 2 years after Ivy's birth, Dominic asked Lena to meet him at the school library after closing. Children's drawings hung from the ceiling. Molly stood near the entrance holding Ivy, who was asleep against her shoulder. Lena looked from Molly to Dominic. What is this? Dominic held no ring. He did not kneel. The first time I asked you to marry me, I wanted you to believe I could become better. Lena remained still. This time I am not asking you to believe a promise. He handed her a folded document. It was a legal agreement Danielle had prepared. It protected Lena's home career finances and parental rights. It stated that no future property could be placed under Dominic's exclusive control. It guaranteed that Ivy's trust would be independent and funded only with verified legal income. Lena read every page. Then she looked at him. What happens if loving you ever requires me to abandon myself again? Dominic answered without hesitation. Then you choose yourself. And I will understand why. Tears filled Lena's eyes. She looked toward Molly. Her sister was crying openly. Ivy woke and reached toward Dominic. He took her carefully. Lena looked at the man holding their daughter. He had not become harmless. He had become accountable. He had not erased the past. He had stopped asking the future to pretend it never happened. Yes, Lena said. Dominic's breath caught. Yes. Yes. They married in the library 3 months later. There were no politicians, no reporters, no Vale associates. Molly stood beside Lena. Danielle signed as a witness. Doctor, Harper held Ivy during the vows. Eli had built a simple arch from Vermont maple. Dominic held Lena's original gold ring. Before placing it on her finger, he looked at her. "May I?" Lena smiled. "Yes." His voice remained steady during the vow. "I will not ask you to become smaller so I can feel powerful. I will not confuse fear with loyalty. I will tell the truth before silence becomes a wall." Lena took his hands. "I choose you freely. I will speak when I am hurt. I will stay while staying is healthy. If love ever asks me to disappear again, I will choose the woman who learned how to leave." That evening, snow fell beyond the windows of Lena's house. Ivy slept upstairs. Lena sat at the kitchen counter reading student essays. Dominic repaired a loose cabinet hinge. The scene was ordinary. No guards waited outside. No hidden phone rang. No empire demanded blood. Dominic closed the cabinet door and tested it. "Tea, please." He filled the kettle. Lena watched him move through the small kitchen. Once she had believed safety looked like marble walls, private elevators, and men standing outside locked doors. Now it looked like a man who asked before entering. A man who returned when he said he would. A man who understood that love was not the power to prevent someone from leaving. It was becoming someone they could freely choose to come home to. Dominic placed the tea beside her. Then he sat across from her without interrupting her work. Outside, snow covered the road between the life they had escaped and the one they had built. Inside, nothing was perfect. Everything was honest.